Welcome to part 9 of this series. In this video we configure GitHub Action as an alternative to SAP BTP CI/CD. I will show the configuration directly on GitHub and inside the project repository. We will use GitHub Actions to deploy our application to SAP BTP and Cloud Foundry. But GitHub Action is not limited to deployment. It can also be used for many tasks such as deployment to on-premise systems, automated tests, pull request validation, code quality checks, and many other DevOps automation. GitHub Action is a powerful and flexible tool that integrates directly into Git workflow. Let's see it up. We already have a local repository and a GitHub repository. First, we set up a self-hosted runner. The runner is the component that later executes the GitHub workflow jobs. To do this, we open the GitHub repository and under Settings, on the left side we select Runners. We add a new runner and select our operating system and CPU architecture. In my case, Mac OS and ARM64. GitHub provides the installation and configuration commands under Download and Configure. First, we create a new folder where I install the runner. This folder must not be a part of the project repository, so I'm going back one and I make a directory runners and I go into this directory. Now we execute the download commands. This I have already done. This command downloads the runner. With this I can compare a checksum. It's okay. And with this I extract the downloaded file. And now I have everything I need. Then we run the configuration commands. First this. And now we configure the runner. In most cases, we can simply press Enter to accept the default values. For labels, we can define custom tags, but this is optional. And finally, we start the runner with this command. But I start the runner here. The runner is successfully started. Here I'm going back to the project. And now we switch back to GitHub. Going to another side and going back. And we will see the runner is working. And here's our self-defined label. With these labels, we can define which runner is used for a job. We remember our label because we will use it in the workflow configuration. To avoid exposing sensitive data like the Cloud Foundry API URL, username or password, we're using GitHub Secrets. In the repository settings, we open the section Secret and Variables. And then Actions. Here we can create the 3 repository secret. We're going to the BTP. And we copy the API URL. We can also do this with vf target copy the URL. Now we create a new repository secret and name this CF API URL and paste the URL inside. Please check that no space and end and beginning, and add the secret. We do the same for CF username and for our password. Optionally, we could also create secrets for the organization name and space name. For demonstrate purpose, I will define them directly inside the workflow file. GitHub secrets are stored encrypted. They cannot be viewed after creation. They can only be replaced. Additionally, GitHub provides environment secrets. These are useful if you need different credentials for different systems like Dev, QS, and Prod. Each system has its own environment with its own secrets. Now our project needs a workflow file. This is comparable to the configuration of the BTP CI/CD job, but much more flexible. We can create this file manually in the source code editor, or we can select a template directly on GitHub. We go to Action, and here are templates we can use. For our scenario, there is no specific template that fits perfectly. So we could start with a Node.js template and modify it. You can do your changes here and commit it to the repository. This will also start the CI/CD process. However, I will create the workflow file directly in the local repository. Before doing that, I switch the branch in my local repository. Now we are in the branch GitHub Actions. This is necessary because the main branch still triggers SAP BTP CI/CD. Now I create the workflow folders inside the repository. And I will create a file deployment YAML. I paste in my prepared workflow file. One important section is on push. This defines which branch triggers the workflow. Another important section is runs on. This defines the runner, meaning the tag that tells GitHub which runner should be executed. We take our self-defined label here. In the next steps, Node.js is installed. The repository is checked out and prepared. This part comes from the Node.js template. I specify exact node version. In the template, there's also a cache instruction under node version. I show it here. Here you select your specific node version, and here you have a cache instruction, cache npm. Please remove this line. Otherwise, GitHub compressed the node modules folder after each job. This is unnecessary and takes a lot of time. After that, we add our own steps. The first is install all dependency. This installs all node modules in the root apps and app router. With this line, you define a multiple line command. Then we build the MTA mtar file and in deploy to Cloud Foundry, we log in with using the secrets of the GitHub repository secrets we created before. This is the organization name and the space name. You found it with CF target, organization name, dev space name. And at least CF deploy and every mtar file. It only gives one from the MTP build. This deployed the application. And after that, I use my curl command to send me a push message to my devices. Rewrite this file and we add everything to the stage of Git and commit it. GitHub Actions workflow, edit, and we push them to GitHub. Because I make a merge from main, everything good, and I push them to GitHub. And on GitHub, we will see the action is triggered. We can open this and see the jobs. And we open this and see the details of the job in real time. That's the output of the terminal runs on our local machine, the running job. This terminal execute this comments defined in the workflow file. I make a little change. And do this from 5 to 6. And push them again. And is triggered. And here you can see the this is the main name of the job build. And then we see the steps and install all dependencies and this was here. Here uploading the file from deployment. This output is the same when you deploy locally the MTA project. It's also execute locally here in this terminal. And here the push message is sent. I become a message on my phone, and the workflow is completed. And now we open the UI5 app on the BTP. And we will see version 6. Here is it. And if you have a multiple landscape, you can create 3 workflow files with different branches and different credentials. And that's all. For deployment to SAP BTP and Cloud Foundry, a self-hosted runner is not mandatory. GitHub can also use a temporary host runner. In that case, we must install the required CLI tools like CF and MTB inside the workflow before using them. GitHub Actions can also be used to deploy application to an on-premise system such as SAP S/4HANA. The process is similar, only the deployment steps changes. It works the same way as running to deploying manually in a fresh cloned repository. This was a short introduction to GitHub Actions. It is easier to set up, much more flexible, and fully configurable. Workflows are defined directly inside the project. They can run locally with a self-hosted runner or be hosted by GitHub. Everything is centralized. No separate tools like BTP CI or Cloud Transport Management. Just Git, GitHub, and optionally a runner. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate a like and a follow.